afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another video. As you can see, we got all the big heavy girls in here and we're going to sort some breeding groups, and I figured I would take this opportunity to explain how I do my breeding systems at Sheep Happens Ranch here, as this barn right behind me is not very big, so I need to improvise as to how I do things when I've got 110, 120 ewes, whatever I decide to lamb per year. So with my lambing barn here, as you can see, if you don't believe me, you can count the plywood. It's 30 wide by just short of 50 long. Now the section that the sheep are in is about 30 by 40. So, you know, about 1,200 square feet. So by square footage, I should be able to have more animals within this barn than what I do put in here. However, I hate overcrowding, and these ewes hate overcrowding. So I don't want to have, you know, if I have one lambing where those wool bags are, I don't want to have 60 sheep crowded around her. And if you've seen my previous videos, you can tell I always put the feeders in the center here to allow, you know, the best access to it. And then I start my lambing pens from this corner, and they go up and they wrap around to the water there. With doing that, I found 40 to 45 ewes at a time is the best option for this barn as far as lambing, to keep everything comfortable. If I end up having, you know, 50 plus in a breeding group, what I usually do is sort out the ones that are not bagged up and either put them in the nursery on that side or over in another pen until they start bagging up, because that leads us into what I do with my ewes to try and save some money. So I'm going to try my best to explain this, but I might not do the best at it, so bear with me. If you remember from a previous video, I had sorted 40 ewes to get bred. Pretty good guess that she's pregnant. Now they would be due in early December. I think it's December 8th that they're due. But what I do with them is when I send out my next breeding group, which is today for a February lambing, what I do is I spray paint their bums with a color. I just spray paint a little mark on their bum, and if the ram comes and rubs that off, I can almost guarantee that they are not pregnant for the previous breeding group. So this is called covering. It's just a kind of a security thing to know that that ewe got exposed to a ram at least twice before you know whether you need to call her or not. So I think it's pretty safe to say that this mama probably caught on the last breeding. So also with my breeding cycles, I only give them 3 to 3.5 weeks with the ram so that I have fairly tight lambing groups, so that I'm only lambing for 3 weeks, have a break, and then only lambing for 3 weeks. Anyway, long story short, what this does is it ends up saving me a little bit of money by not having to scan these ewes. Most of our local vets around here do service sheep, but they charge quite a bit to do it. You know, you break that 40 sheep down to, say, a $400 charge, that's an extra $10 per ewe that you need to get back from those lambs. I don't have a proper handling system. I just use my lambing panels and a couple of guillotine gates in my scale. It works for me because I only have 110, 120 sheep. What are you doing, Moo? What are you doing? You sure got a lot to say, Moo. But yeah, that's the gist of it. I really enjoy only lambing, you know, 40, 45 ewes every group. Because I do put so much effort into lamb survivability, I do spend a lot more time than most shepherds do out in their barn. I mean, frig, I sleep out in that room during lambing, so it's a personal preference to do that. I hate having stillborn lambs because of something that I did on a management side of things. So I try my hardest to make sure that I am there as much as I possibly can be for these ewes. It helps with the survivability, and then also makes the ewes nice and quiet to handle, and you know, not have to worry about chasing them around and having a proper handling system in order to deal with their like craziness. Sheep tend to be very flighty animals. I'm sure everyone has kind of noticed my girls will move, but they're not like bouncing off the freaking boards and carrying on like some people's hair sheep, even though these to me are not hair sheep. They are still classified within that hair sheep category, which tend to be a little bit more wound up. Especially your black belly Barbados, they tend to be a little bit psycho. But yeah, so that's, I like the easy handling. You know, these girls, they love being around me. They come up for attention all the time. I quite enjoy having quiet ewes, even though they can be a pain in the butt sometimes. But being out in the barn with them more during that 3-week lambing period, it definitely helps to keep them nice and quiet. They're easy mothering. I don't have to do a whole lot. It's more just the being there in case something is wrong. This year's lambing, and from all the way from September all the way through until May, I guess was my last group, I think I had to pull maybe 10 or 15 lambs and had very few stillborns. I think I had 4 stillborns on the entire 110 that I lambed last year. So that's a pretty good survivability as far as I'm concerned. The fact is that they are livestock. So when you have livestock, you have dead stock. It's the unfortunate part of farming, and that's why I wanted to show this on YouTube, to kind of show that, you know, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. There are a lot of things that go wrong in farming, and animals don't always make it, especially sheep. Sheep have this thing where they just want to try and die all the time. But yeah, a 3-week lambing period is what I always aim for. What I normally do, I didn't do it this year, kind of another personal reason why I didn't. But so what I'll do, for example, is this girl right here is a coming third lammer. What would have normally happened with my coming third lammers is they'll lamb normally at a year, then they lamb normally at a 2-year when they're second lammers, and then I accelerate them so that they lamb 3 times in 2 years for their 3rd, 4th, and 5th lambings, and then I go back to once a year after that. So I'm a semi-accelerated program. It's worked out for us so far. Dorpers are not meant to be accelerated, but I do it anyway. It seems to work. And why I choose the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year is that is when they're the most prolific, which is why I normally would have a September, October lambing group. Unfortunately, I didn't breed them that way this year just because I wanted to go on a big hunting trip this fall, which ended up not happening. So that's kind of a whole other side of things, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do it to get back on a rotation. It's one thing when you plan for doing that semi-accelerated program, when you have 1 year where you change your mind and you want to just maybe not lamb in September, October, even August, it kind of screws up the whole program and you got to spend about 2 years fixing it. So it is what it is. I'm going to get back on working that out with how I want to do everything here, but let's get some ewes sorted here. Okay, well, we got the first half sorted. I still got the other half out there to do. So I'm gonna run this side of group out into the L pen outside so they're out of the way. Bring those girls in. But this is one breeding group, another breeding group, and then some of these ewes are older and the replacement ewes in here that are not getting bred this go. These girls can go find those other ones that I had kicked out of the way, and I'll go put their ram with them and put them in their pen. Come on, buddy. Alright, there's the second group out with the one ram. I had to cut his horn off again. I'm gonna have to get rid of that ram. I think I'm so frustrated how it grows so quickly. Like, that's the third time this year I've had to cut it. So even though people have, these purebred registered Dorpers, don't always believe that they're good quality, even though they try and convince you that they are. I took a chance on these two. The other one's coming up behind over there slowly. I took a chance on them. They were really little, but she had claimed that she hadn't been grading them, so just to keep their man parts in order, I've always fed my homebred rams the same as I do my feeders. Maybe not quite as heavy, but they still get grain and get fed quite good. But you can see that ram is smaller than some of these ewes, and he should be even bigger than that. He's, you know, a year and a half old now. He should be huge, but for some reason they're just not growing. They're starting to come into themselves. The conformation is good, they just don't have the size. So I'm giving them one more chance on this group. See kind of how this goes. Go from there. And I will eventually get my shears fixed and be able to finish shearing these guys. I feel terrible that I haven't got it done yet. There's just been a lot going on this year, and you know, excuses that I can make for it, but simple as it is, I just never spent the time to fix the shears, so I need to do that and get the wool off these guys. There's not very many left. I think there's only 6 or 7 that need their wool off.